Hello everybody, Glass Half Dead here, and the past week I've been talking quite a lot about competitive formats, rules, ways to modify the game, but it's been very one-sided. So, look what the Ripper Swarm dragged in. It's Beeranid 40k on this side of me. Hello.
Hey,
So basically I've been talking too long, one-sided. I need someone to put me in check, somebody that knows the game probably better than I do and is more competitive than me. And who better than Beeranid? Beeranid, I'm gonna crack this open with one that I think is generally accepted as a good thing to do. But maybe we're gonna be stuck on this point for like the next 2 hours. Okay, what do you think about this for a change to the competitive rule set? Holding an objective should be based on number of wounds, not models.
hmm,
Hmm.
um, hmm. It's gonna be weird because I don't know how you would fit a whole bunch of people on there. I think that the reactor mission in Arena kind of has that going on, and if you look, it's a big like block of area, and
Yeah.
then they had something similar to LVO, which was controlling the ruins. So something like that with terrain would work better. So maybe that would be something to play around with on an open board more. But it's been in the game. We've tried it. We know that it works, and I don't know if that would be a great way to say now this is the primary way of doing objectives because it's like I think that a lot of times what people are trying to do right now is counter hordes, and well, what can we fit more of in a place? Something three models on a 25 millimeter base or one model on a 32. It gets kind of weird. So I don't know. I'm unsure on that one.
Oh, okay. Because this is something I've heard thrown about quite often, and it's definitely something that I think is a good start. Because don't get me wrong, you could still get three Hormagaunts at 12 points to outweigh a Primaris Marine on a single point objective, but it would at least balance the scales a little bit, so you don't have a single 4 point model taking that guy
Yeah,
out of contention. But that's not as instant a yes please from you.
yeah, because it's like look at it with four times three, so four or three Hormagaunts. It'd be 4, 8, 12, so 12 points on an objective there. Whereas a lot of the elite teams that people are seeking to buff right now are all just one wound models anyway. So it would kind of be like 12 points would hold the objective, but a 15-point Primaris would now have to come and still be losing because they're 15 points base if you take them at the cheaper rate in the Astartes. So it's possible. It would be interesting to play. I think it might change up things and make things a little bit more fighty, I guess, rather than campy. And that would be interesting to test out. It's just my initial guess hammer going on. But, I just don't know. I don't know. I haven't tested that out a whole bunch.
Okay. I
For
mean,
me, what I found is that, oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I was thinking, to be honest, more on the pricier spectrum. So Terminators are three wounds, and at least it gives them
Okay.
a little bit more validity because obviously it would be nice to want to run a Terminator, you know?
Yeah. I'm still wrapping my head around Terminators because with multiple damage weapons, it's almost like they don't really feel like Terminators. I don't know how to explain it really. They just kind of die. My first game with a
Yeah.
Terminator involved, I was playing Astartes and I just ran plasma spam and I had a turn one concession. It was just a total bomb, and so I don't know. Terminators, man. It really, you look at things, especially things like Death Watch that are already only having a few bodies and stuff like that, and you bring in those guys. I don't know. It's I think they're still finding their place. Now, I'm not as completely polarized as I was against them. I think that there might be ways to make it work, but I just haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Fair enough. Um, it's an idea I like, but I can also imagine that there are things I have not considered that would make it unfair to certain factions. Exactly as you said, um, Deathwatch, Grey Knights, they're still 1 point models, so you're not helping them. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Death
okay.
Watch would be interesting because imagine if somebody piles the 3 Hormagaunts on there, you'll have 2 rounds of smite, so you can have one guy watching from a little bit, or Cybolt, I mean, not smite, it's
Do you mean
not
Grey
flame chain.
Knights?
Grey Knights, what did I say?
I think Death Watch.
Yeah, Grey Knights, yes. So when you're talking about Grey Knights with this idea of the multi-wound thing, if you have the 3 versus 1, you can have one guy nearby still doing Cybolt, the other guy on the objective doing Cybolt. They do have CC, and then there's flamers and stuff too. So there's I don't know. I think they could do something like that.
Oh, I
I
think
also
Grey
don't
Knights are
think.
in a great place. I don't think we need to worry
Yeah,
about Grey Knights.
that's what I was going to say. I don't think that they are as bad off as we were assuming they were a few months ago. They're coming back in a big way. The additional Cybolt helps, but they were already pretty gross with the one, with their great D3 everywhere and stuff, or D3 stuff like that. It's just they have a lot of high damage weapons. They can take the 2 gunners. I wish they could take 4 like the Death Watch. If I could run all gunners with them and have smite, that would be broken. But
I feel like we play
maybe they'll be.
different factions when we look at Grey Knights. They're a close combat army to me. Like I
Yeah,
I when I after I came away from my Warhammer World win, the gunner did nothing for me, and I wanted to swap him to a normal guy with falchions.
yeah. That's just the thing about it is that my entire elite in arena strategy is getting guys over their objectives, not on their objectives. I'm scoring. I'm holding my 2 or something like that. And then I put a flame weapon, an auto hitting of some kind, over their objectives, and then they just cannot score. It asks them a hard question: you charge me and take the auto hits on Overwatch? You stand there and let me drain you or drown you in D6 or 2D6? That's an interesting thing that people have to work around. And so having the flamers, having 2, they could probably do it. 2 with the Cybolt. But if they had more, man, they would be a much bigger threat in arena.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Next point in that case, you had something you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, we were talking about the what is that? I call it the jackpot objectives. So the very beginning of Kill Team in the core rulebook, we had a mission called Recover Intelligence, where you had, instead of just one objective counting as 1 point, you have basically different values associated to them. Now, the ones in the backfield used to count as 2. I would still keep basically for 4 of 5 objectives. Hold 1, score 1 point. Hold 2, score 1 point. But hold more, score 3. But I think it would be really interesting to also play with bringing that central objective, scoring 3 points as well. Bring that back, put that in the center, and keep the 3 point scoring caps. And then all of a sudden, you have a really interesting game. It's, look at a spam faction, for example. Do they just take the more and tie as you hold that center? Do they try to hold a few and fight for that center now to keep you from having it? But then now you have really tanky guys. It incentivizes bringing perhaps more versatile lists now. We used to see big bug lists. That's what I did well with in a local tournament. When we were running those kinds of missions, I ran 5 Tyranids and dominated that. I just ran a bunch of warriors and a few lictors, or 1 lictor. And I only had 1 Hormagaunt in the list. Whereas now, if you make it to where hold more is the main objective, you cut out that entire archetype of big tanky a lot of times. That's just kind of how I've seen it as we've gone to where it's just a numbers game. It's a lot of times a real resilience game, a speed game, and topping out at one of these where somebody else doesn't have one of those is what makes you good. Whereas if we put things in the center, a lot of times I think instead of it being 2 miniature games or something where you have a focus over here on this side of the board and a focus over here on this side of the board, it starts to really bring a lot of attention and models and threat and pressure and attention to one area of the board. So I really liked that idea to at least be something to play around with in future competition.
Would that not just thinking about it, I
Things like
haven't
that.
played this per se, but would that not lead to just a dice off in the middle, effectively?
Yeah.
If
Yep.
the
Yeah.
entire battle is focused on a single point, then everybody's going to shoot at everybody in the same place, and it's just like, oh well, I hope I roll better than you.
Yeah. I guess that is possible. It's just that I didn't see it that way terribly in the main game. You
Sure.
might have somebody on that objective, somebody charges in, now they cannot be shot. So, that kind of stuff is a factor. But like I said, there's still the other objectives too. And as a Tyranid player with only 4-point Hormagaunts, yes, you have a lot of bodies, but you don't have a lot of killing power unless you're leaving Hormagaunts at home and taking bigger bugs. So it really sets you up to be in a different frame of mind and to ask yourself, how do I approach this? Because I can charge all these bodies in, but I might not necessarily kill this Terminator. Suddenly, Terminators are really something to look at. If you're worried about somebody shooting them or something, I mean, put a storm shield on them and march that guy up and see how survivable he really is. Uh, that build would suddenly, it's something we never see now, uh, be really interesting and something to play around with and really math hammer, test out, see.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. Certainly, anything that makes the more expensive models better and actually be worth their cost really interests me. I've got to be honest. Um, Not just Terminators, but everything else that points level. Like for guard, I'm not really seeing anybody saying good things about Bullgrins, for example, in a competitive sense. Um, yeah, which is a bit of a shame because they're awesome models. I'd love to see them on the board. But
Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
okay,
I just think something that was in the game from early on that we just forgot about because it wasn't in Nova, and everything afterwards has been predicated on what happened at Nova, where we had secondary objectives. The primary objectives were hold more, score three, things like that. And it was like, okay, this was one tournament, and then we saw it everywhere else. And now it's almost like a weird topic to bring up jackpot objectives. People are like, "What? What do you mean? We're a year away, or we're a year off from core missions now." And it's just, for me, that was one of the most competitive, fun missions that was on there, and it was the closest to the modern tournament format that we're playing. And it's like, man, if you were to take that and add in secondaries, that's an interesting thing. Figuring out, am I just going to hold this and tie, let them have that middle, or take the middle, let them have all of those, and try and dominate on secondaries, what I've built my team to be good at? That's an interesting. I mean, there's different ways of approaching it rather than just, oh, need more, need more objectives, more bodies necessary. I mean, the lists right now are starting to look like people fell asleep at their computer, their nose hit the letter F, and it just spammed it out. And really, I think that we would see a lot more versatility. There would be unexpected things showing up suddenly. You wouldn't be able to say, oh, Tyranids, they're going to spam. You wouldn't know anymore. Uh, and so you wouldn't know also, oh, Terminators, nobody's going to bring them. Things like that. It would start to potentially put things on the table that you are unprepared for. And that's what I miss. I miss the surprise of, oh, holy crap, okay, this is something I need to deal with it now. And now that, okay, clock is ticking, dice are rolling, okay, and you are figuring it out in the moment on the fly, uh, rather than having it figured out 4 months ahead of time on a computer running Math Hammer, which there's nothing wrong with Math Hammer. You're going to be doing it the same to figure out what you can potentially metagame and see as the potential threat, and have answers for both kinds of things maybe and in your roster. But I think the individual factions each start to present in multiple ways with the jackpot objective just by having that one thing going on. So it's an interesting thing to experiment with bringing it back, and that's why I keep harping on about it. Let's just try it, guys. Let's try it. Let's throw it in a tourney pack, see how it does. Even just one mission. Let's try it.
yeah, no, I am a big proponent, and maybe it comes up in some of my notes here. I can't remember what I actually wrote down and what I just thought of and forgot to write down. Um, of different missions coming, like different primary objectives, as something that should very much be a part of the tournament. Don't get me wrong, You know, one VP to hold one, another VP to hold two, and another VP to hold more. That's great. You know, I think that's an awesome format for one or two missions, but not for all five or six in the tournament, kind of. And anything to break from that mold a little bit, or even though you said that the scoring would still be the same, sorry, but the way you achieve that score almost is different. I think that's very good for and healthy for the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that things have to remain point based, because otherwise the tourney starts to get skewed. Or like imagine a person goes 3-1 or something at a tournament. Well, if that one was on a tournament where it was everybody went low, or a round where everybody went low, it won't matter as much as on a turn where you take a loss or something on one that everybody was winning. It's just, I don't know. I think that you want to have an even keel kind of baseline. And I like that we've seen things like, okay, 18 points, objectives, secondaries, and then maxes on that. I like that format. I just think that what we're seeing now is that it's pushing some builds and archetypes out. And my effort with the jackpot talking about this is basically bring this back. Let's see what happens there. I like things how it is. I'm not necessarily saying to change a million things. And I don't know if a different format per round would be a good thing. Like you were talking about kill points and stuff like we mentioned. And the thing about that is what you were kind of suggesting is a mission where you have to kill somebody. Maybe is that what you were kind of talking about earlier?
Not necessarily kill a certain person, but you get victory
Okay.
points for making a kill in some manner. Like I haven't hashed out the deets, if I'm honest, but you know, kill
Yeah.
points. Maybe you get one for a normal guy, two for a specialist, three for a leader. I don't know. Like that's I just threw that out, or maybe just one base for everyone. I haven't thought about it
Yeah.
that deeply.
Because like with the Kiev thing we were talking about also, it's like okay, if your commander makes a kill, that's 2 VP in certain situations.
Sure.
I think that free choice secondaries does a lot for that, which we saw at BAO, the Bay Area Open, which is, look, this is what my team is good at. I'm going to build them and play them with these secondaries and be able to do my best with those. It eliminates a lot of the variance of having, 5 choices. And you might have 3, 4 that are really good for an elite and 2 that are, one is okay for shooting, one is very bad, and you're left maybe taking a edge case assault or melee type one in a shooting faction. I don't like those kinds of situations. So I don't know.
Okay.
I think,
So we
yeah,
have a different view on this. So
okay.
I agree that if you're picking from, and I did find this when I was playing the arena missions, there are some missions where you're just like, well, two of these are good, but for the third, I really like they are all equally useless to me. So I agree there might
Mhm.
be some issues there. However, my issue with having completely free reign over any of the secondaries is that if the primary is the same every time, so you know there are what 5 points on the map. Is that the basic?
Mhm.
And then you know one you get one, two you get a second, three more than your opponent you get a third.
Yeah.
That's great. That's fine. You know that's the primary mission. Cool. It's the same every time. No issue. However, realistically, if you have access to every secondary, you're gonna build your list around the ones that are best for you, right? And so you are going to take the same secondary objectives every time, which isn't an issue. You should, because obviously, there's going to be get a range kill, basic stuff for your kill team. However, if you're playing the same primary and the same secondary every time, you're playing the same mission every time. That's not, I feel, a good tournament. I feel there has to be variance. Variance is exactly what you want. Otherwise, why have a tournament pack with different missions?
Yeah, I think that the variance is good for home games, and I think that different people want different things from the game. When it comes time to a tournament and you want people to be playing at their best and able to represent each faction the best, that the multiple choice or the free choice secondaries really starts to open things up, because you have to think about it. Like right now, in from a spike player's perspective or a metagamer, I might not take a certain faction at all just because I'm looking at the tourney pack and I'm saying, oh, well, there's no good third here for that faction in mission 4. Uh, so that's not a good place to be in. What we want to do is make every faction potentially viable and have it be in these tournaments that are few and far apart. We come together and we play like this, and everything's very standardized. Now at home, you have your janky terrain and your weird stuff and your home rules, and that's where a lot of the Timmy players and the Johnny players and stuff have a lot of fun and mess around there. But I think that in a tournament, it is probably best to remain with the free choice secondaries. It's just kind of my thoughts on it. Otherwise, you're seeing things that just won't be played. Or, I mean, like, what is a good secondary or a good third secondary in interlopers or the Death Watch? Let's say you're doing a elite shooting team. Well, you have one objective, which makes you hold back, which would be vent reactors. So you take 1/5 of your entire team, and now they're doomed to do nothing. Or you have cut apart, which, like I just said, we're going for a shooting team. This is how I'd like to show off my team and come up there and play them. Well, cut apart is not a shooting team's thing. So you're relying on veterans with no close combat weapon and 2 attacks to score there. Or you can do something, where it's like, oh, we were already complaining about holding 1 back. Let's do scout the field and hold 3 on 3 different board corners. Now suddenly you have 2 guys that are able to go out and actually take objectives. It's just like, man, whereas if I would have done, say, obliterate, the long shot or called shot, something like that, you can stack things together and really do well with that team that I want to play. And I think that it wouldn't be necessarily the same every game, because the faction shows up and you're going to be different. You're going to be able to or you're going to have to come up with different replies. For example, with the
Alex's
Necrons,
statistics disagree with you. Everyone
yeah,
picks the
well, that
same.
was one. It's only one tournament, and the thing about
I
it
believe
is
it's
that
all of the ones he's run. We'd have to ask him, but I believe people pick the same ones, depending on the
yeah,
faction that they pick, not the faction they go against.
as far as I knew, that they only did Bay Area Open and a few prep tourneys. And the thing about it is I was at none of
Yes, yeah,
those. And I
correct.
would have, for example, if Necrons comes up, I'm not going to take Obliterate because I'm not going to be putting 2 damage weapons on them. Whereas every other game I might have taken Obliterate. Things like that. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Who knows? But a month of playing. Let's just say, okay, this wasn't just one event. Let's say that he held 3 prep tourneys and BAO. That's not enough data to get any kind of information on a meta. It's an indication. It
So
lets
I
us say,
agree, it's
okay,
too small a sample size to really say anything.
right,
I do
we can get
100% agree with that. But we can't just look at
yeah.
what he has done and ignore it. Like,
No, that's not what I'm
it's
saying either. Like
no,
I said, it's an indication. It's a hint. It's a clue that starts to say, oh, well, this is what it's looking like now. And for a metagamer that is planning things based on the past and predicting for the future, it's very interesting for me. I'm always looking at this kind of stuff. And I don't know. I don't think that we even saw hugely optimized lists at the BAO and stuff. So that's something to think of there. Like one of the Tyranid guys, I guess he had just bought an
yeah,
army
yeah,
and ran
yeah,
it probably well. But what do you expect from him? He's
yeah.
got this one list is what he's going to run, and of course he's going to pick a lot of times the very same things that, look, this is what my team can do, and he was smart to do it that way. Whereas if somebody had a full roster and they're going up against a lot of different teams, well, you might run a list a different way depending on what you're going against. And I know that I certainly would, because for even just for Las Vegas Open. I had written down what secondaries I was going to pick per mission and per faction. So I broke this up on the archetypes like we talked about. Okay, this is a horde. This is a plasma spam kind of a shooting. If I go against something elite, this is what I'm going to do. And I would have those three choices I would have made for round one. And then I would have done that again for round two. So, you're tailoring your roster, you're tailoring your secondaries, and that's what this game is all about, is tailoring and having the more options.
But to clarify, in a tournament, in your opinion, the only variance you want is the opponent you play then, right?
Well, there's other things. There's dice. There's, like...
Well, yeah, but you
okay,
can't plan for dice.
What we want to get to is a test of skill.
Yeah,
we want people
sure.
to be playing at their absolute best and have the least reasons possible to flunk out and go 3-1 or something and not be at that top table. We want people to be able to take what faction they want, show that it can be good, because you have to please the Johnny players too. You have the Spikes, you have the Johnnies, you have the Timmies, and everybody wants something different from the game. The Johnnies want to be able to say, look, this thing that you didn't think was good, look how good it is. And secondaries suddenly do that. You want people to be able to bring any model and potentially do okay with it. And that will please, the Timmy player, because they get an emotional experience out of it. Whereas the Spike wants to be able to clear out 90% of available options and say, this is what's good. Now, how do I go from here? And metagame, look up a net list, something like that, and go from there. We need to be remembering that there are multiple player personalities playing this game, and we don't want to exclude them from tournaments, because tournaments are really an exciting thing for people to be a part of in Kill Team. And, kind of go from there. And I think that the free choice secondaries, that jackpot objective, that kind of stuff really starts to open the game up for skilled people to show up and to do well there. Not just have a list that steamrolls because, hey, you know what? By the luck of the dice, 9 objectives out of 12 favor this team. So guess what? Those are the only the only options available. This is what's going to be taken. This is what's going to do well.
Okay.
I don't know.
So, I feel like... Okay, so, if you can pick anything, there is no choice, I would argue. And you may as well not have secondaries. Because, generally, people are going to pick the secondaries they know they can get. And they're going to tailor their list to get those secondaries. And certainly in the BAO, we generally saw, the good players getting 9 points on secondaries. So why not just remove them and just play the primary?
Well, the thing about it is we're already seeing that when you look at like LVO. That's exactly what I did, except that not every faction is able to do that. So it's a problem that is already going to exist that isn't even necessarily a problem to begin with, I guess, depending on how you look at it. Some people don't see this as an issue. But it's something that is already existing, yet instead of it being just a few factions that are able to come and counter, like what makes elites or what makes Tyranids strong is their versatility. You'll start to see them again, exactly like I said. What did we see at this tourney where this was done? Tyranids. So you'll start to see that do really well, and you'll start to see certain things just are not brought. And that's going to be a sad day for the game. Because why am I going to go pay $200 in plane tickets, a few hundred extra for hotel? I'm going to have to pay for the ticket. I'm going to pay for the day. I've got this army built up that I love, and they don't have a chance. That's just lame. That's like, oh, I'm starting off on the back foot. I don't like that very much. I don't think that a lot that encourages certain player personalities to show up.
I agree. I want every faction to be able to win. Ultimate balance would be awesome. 100% agree. And I believe that should be done through the missions that we play. Right? And you're saying the same?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know. I think that I would like things to be standardized missions also. Here's another weird thought.
Okay. So you do just want one mission? played 5 times.
I I think that would be an interesting way to test. Again, we don't know anything. There is no meta right now. There is nothing. Nothing we go online and talk about like we're experts is the truth right now. We don't know. We're speculating. The game is not old enough. We haven't hit the 4-year mark, the end of an edition yet. Things like that. Things are still coming out. We've had elites for like a month and a half. We don't know. That includes one interesting tourney that people are looking at. So we don't have an answer right now. All I'm saying is that these things would be interesting, that we should perhaps keep our minds open to some of these ideas. And I think that a one mission tournament played over 5 rounds could be very interesting, because you get to see who was the best that day, what was the best faction there. And every time you make a little change, it's going to change, certain little factions here and there, get a little buff, a little nerf. And we've been sitting here since Nova of last year, playing in a very similar way. Whereas I'm fine with continuing to play that way. I love to play this, but let's make a few tweaks here and there and see what happens. Let's inject a little bit of chaos here.
So interestingly, I'm going to a tournament July 27th at my local gaming store, and I kind of pushed the store to put it on, but to do it they were really hesitant, and so I really dumbed it down for them. Said, look, it's a single mission from this book. That's all we need. You just have to give us the tables. One mission, there's like no TOing. It'll be fine. And so they're actually doing that. We're going to play one mission from the book, 5 rounds. So that will happen July 27th. Just FYI.
Yeah, have to keep us posted, man.
Well, I'm very excited for it, yeah. But okay, I think we view the competitive scene there slightly differently. You want 0 variance, test of skill, which I want as well. To be clear, I don't want random things, but I view the variances that happen outside of the game as things that a good player should be able to counter for, hopefully with their roster. And part of that roster building, which is part of the metagame, would be included in the player's skill almost. Don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of randomness built into certain factions. Like, Space Marines, if you get killed, you can spend 2 CP for death denied. Whereas I think it's Orcs, if you do something similar, you have to roll a 4 up.
Yeah, most other factions it's a 4 up, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is there's more or less randomization built into separate different parts of each faction. And, if it comes down to a game of just variance and eliminating variance, then you're going to see, like what I'm hoping to do well with at SoCal Open, you'll see what happens a lot of times when you can eliminate certain variances and say, oh, these rules, they don't apply to me. They still apply to you, but they don't apply to me. And now my team is going to theoretically dominate, So it's not necessarily about eliminating that altogether. I'm not saying to get rid of all variants and all things. I'm saying let's just try these things out. Let's see what happens, because theoretically it could lead to a different, result, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a dice game. There will always be variants.
True.
From the dice, I mean. And I'm agreeing. I'm not saying there should be variance in the game. As you say, factions already have different levels of variance. Orcs, super high variance, because that's just how they are.
And they're just on 6s. Will 6s come? Tune in next time, folks.
Yeah. Tune in the next tournament, because I've lost this one because I didn't roll 6s. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm not arguing for that, an increase in variance there, but I mean outside, before you play the game, I think variance is good. But we have hammered on this, and I think we just have opposing views. Shall we move to the next point? Because otherwise we are just going to talk, should there be variance in tournaments for the next hour, I feel.
Yeah. Well, I would close it out and just say that, I'm not saying that I don't think that at all. And you could end up being the one that has the idea for the perfect way to play a tournament. And so I'm just tossing ideas, and that's it.
Yeah, no.
People want to play.
as
and tell me
as
that
as
terrible
you
stuff
said,
can happen.
we are both just hypothesizing. There
Yep.
is not enough data to say anything for sure. We're just two guys having a chat about a game that we know relatively well. That's it. Nothing
Yeah,
more.
and somebody can say, Beer, all of your ideas are terrible, and I'm gonna have to live with that. So that's just, you know, we won't know till we try. I'm just saying, hey, let's try this one of these days. Might be
Oh,
interesting.
definitely, definitely. I think that's I try to I've been trying to put this across in my videos the last week, but yeah, just have an open mind. Try everything. Try a single mission tournament. Try a crazy, completely every single possible variance is rolled for before the game. Try both. See what happens, and try everything in between as well, and just be open-minded. And if you go to a tournament that has a format you weren't so sure on, and it turns out, yeah, you were right, you didn't like it, that's fine. You'll know for next time. But while we still have quite a small community, I think we have space to try new things.
Yeah, exactly. It's
That
still a new game.
sounded, yeah, exactly. That sounded like the kind of thing I'd say when we finish the interview. So I might just clip that and tuck it on the end. But no, okay. So here's another idea that I have. Okay,
Okay.
how about 15-man active lists instead of 20-man active lists, with a 25-man roster instead of a 20-man roster.
Why?
Oh, don't
What
know,
will
don't know.
be? What will
Uh,
be a conflict?
so, what's the point of that? Some of the big lists that we've seen win, of course, have been hordes. We've had Gaunt spam, Poxwalker spam, ages ago Heretic spam as well, Cultist spam.
Mm-hmm.
This would stop that, but it wouldn't affect anything else. Therefore, helping elite factions out slightly, because the only way those guys won was through sheer force of numbers.
Yeah, I don't know. I won with Deathwatch last month,
Yeah,
and we saw at BAO. Tyranids didn't come and raffle stomp. Not everybody was playing Tyranids. Hardly anybody was playing Tyranids, and they didn't take even top 8 as far as I know. I guess everybody was pretty much. They. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that hordes are as big a problem right now. I cannot beat myself, my Death Watch or my Astartes with hordes right now in arena against my elite teams, my Death Watch or my Astartes now post elites. Um, and I don't know if nerfing them is going to be needed. Um, I mean, yes, I am a Tyranid player, but I'm also an elite player. I've been trying to carry that torch because a few months ago people were saying they were non-starters. You couldn't even win with them. Why try? And so that bothered me because I worried about the future of the game if that was the case, and I wanted to see if this was true, and it's not. They do well. And so I don't know. Again, we could try that. We could see, how it goes. I just don't know. It's kind of like penalizing just the average kid for something. I don't know, like pointing somebody out and saying, you're the bad one here. You're the bully, and he's just the same height as everybody else. Really, it's just that Tyranids happen to be an older faction. A lot of people have Tyranids. A lot of people can buy them cheap online. You can start a faction right away or a roster and get going to your next tournament. Usually, a lot of people are familiar with them. And so when the game was new, that's what we saw. People were able to support that. They had 19 Hormagaunts and one warrior. That was easy to port over from their 40K lists, and it went and did well in the beginning. But I think that the meta is maturing a little bit. Like I said, we still don't really have a meta, but I think it's maturing into something. And Tyranids haven't been really anything to talk about for a while. They've been okay, but like I did a video on top 8 factions for last month, they weren't even mentioned. Right now, I see Servants of
Oh,
the Abyss as a bigger threat.
well, Servants of the Abyss are very scary, yes. But I would argue the no Tyranids thing is just because we haven't had a tournament in ages, isn't
Yeah,
it? I mean, apart from BAO, obviously. But the last one before that was Warhammer World, which arena.
Yeah.
It was ages ago, and Tyranids did come in top four.
Well,
Not with
played.
spam though. They came in with big bugs, by the way.
I'll tell you, man. I played against a semi-spam list final round of the tournament last month, and it was almost tabled. They had 3 Hormagaunts left on the table against the Death Watch, and it was brutal. And then they had gone the game before; they had maxed out on the 18, so they were looking really strong. So that's the thing about Tyranids is I don't know, certain matchups are just very bad for them. And if you bring a lot of things and tie yourself into a certain list, you're able to be countered. And that's why I've said from the beginning, I think the 12-man spam would be better than a 20-man spam because of the 20, you're not gaining as much. I really feel that. You are gaining more by still being able to do the same job, which is put 3 bodies on something and basically also have lictors and stuff.
Okay, so kind of similar to that then. I feel I can guess what you're already going to say. What about a larger roster?
Would I? So I wouldn't be able to put more bodies on the table?
No, it would still be 20 man list, active list. But let's say I'm just going to pick a number, 30 man roster. But it could be anything. It could be 25, it could be 30, 50, whatever. But just a larger
22.
roster. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Or does that
I don't
not
know.
interest you?
Uh, I I don't know. I don't have a problem with it if people want to try it. Um, I would play that. I would see if it. My first question would be, does that give any kind of advantage to somebody? And I would be looking at that. Can I suddenly now win a tournament because I have that extra versatility? Like for the Tyranids, okay, if I can still take 20, suddenly, yeah, Tyranids get super strong from that because now I can take my 12 list with the lictors, and I can take at 125 or something, I could do 2 warriors and 18 Hormagaunts. Suddenly, that one synapse going down isn't as much of a problem because you have that second one, 3 more wounds that they have to deal with in 4 rounds. So I don't know. It would. I think that like anything, it's going to buff some factions, and others might not benefit at all. Some might be hurt. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Have to test it.
The first thing that jumps to my mind is Tyranids. They would suddenly have the option of the classical, 19 gaunts, one warrior spam, but then another list. So obviously it's very attractive for a Tyranid player. But I don't
Yep.
know, like, how often do you find yourself writing a roster and wishing you had 5 more slots? Is that a thing for you? Or on
Yeah, I've had
reflection,
that come up.
are you okay with it? And you're like, actually, 20 slots, it's tight. I've had to really focus. But actually, yes, because I didn't have an extra 5 slots, I've really made a good roster here, and it's good. And there, and even if I had 5 slots, now that I've thought about it, it's okay.
Yeah, I think that that does come up quite a bit, and it's even with Deathwatch, it's amazing how fast that fills up. Running 5-man teams and stuff, and at 125, hey, it's filling up even faster. So it does come up because part of my hobby is just writing lists and theory hammering and math hammering and stuff. So it has come up. Um, I just I don't know, how we would have to see how that goes. And my first thing isn't my faction suddenly gets better. It's you are looking from a tournament player's perspective. A lot of times it's going to be which one got the buff here, and that's what I'm going to pick. So we'd have to see how it goes to see what the meta would be doing that. And it would have to be played like that for a long time. We would have to say, okay, this is a new way to do tournaments. Let's try this off and on for a year, and then come back and compare results for this kind of game and see where things are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, that's always going to be the answer. We have to test it. Yeah. Um, okay. So here's an interesting one that one of my commenters suggested. What about if at the end of the game, unspent CP could be converted to VP?
Hmm.
Now, I'm not saying 1 for 1. Maybe it's 2 for 1. I don't know. Don't know. I'm not giving firm details here, but just in theory.
Yeah.
Or does that not interest
Um,
you at all?
no, it does interest me. I just think my first thought was, okay, the feeder tendrils tactic from Tyranids is what I would be looking at right there, because I can get D3 CP just for killing the leader. I can stack that with the secondary for killing the leader, if possible, and just swarm an entire mass of bugs up. Try and get that. Try and get the extra CP. Um, I don't know. We'd have to again test it. My mind just goes to how would I win that? How could I game that
Oh, of
system?
course.
How could
Yeah,
I
I
break
mean,
it?
yeah,
Uh,
but that's where your mind should go. Yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
So certain factions would come out ahead there. Like I said, Tyranids win as the leader a lot of times exposed. It's going to be towards the end of the game, and you have these guys with 8, 9, 15 plus 3d6 inch advances. Take the highest on the one. Uh, So I'm going to get somebody in there. I'm going to kill them, and at the very least, right at the end, I'm going to score that clutch D3 victory points. You pay the 1 CP to gain D3 CP. So I have nowhere to go but break even or up. So that would be, if something like that was going on and there were certain other factors involved, suddenly I would be back to playing Tyranids, I think.
yeah. I mean, just to reiterate there, I suppose all of these are brilliant ideas. Even the bad ones are brilliant ideas if you're a casual player. Yeah, but I don't think there's a conversation to be had if you're a casual player. Just play them. Like
Yeah,
you
if you're
don't
a
need to
casual
discuss
player,
them.
it's
Just play
whatever
them.
you want.
Yeah. Um, I am specifically referring to tournaments because that's where the conversation is. Because in narrative, in open, etc., if you only ever play with you and three friends, who cares?
Hmm.
Play 700
Yeah,
point games. Who
and I
cares?
actually played some pretty casual stuff recently, and it was interesting, man. A guy drove down and basically said, "Look, I'm not really a tournament player," and we were doing wacky stuff. Like he had a commander at 125, I think, versus my 125 that didn't. Just things like that. And we were playing around and just doing stupid, weird. Let's do this. Let's try this. Whatever he wanted to do, and it was interesting. Leveled up specialists. That was the thing where
Yeah,
you could
that's
do a
coming
points
up in one
buy.
of my questions. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right. But yeah, if you're playing this with beer and pretzels, and that's a definite player personality type. A lot of people that
Definitely.
want the
Yeah.
emotional experience and the narrative and things like that, which is what I thought this game was going to be most of at first. Uh, you get that there a lot of times. And so, if that's what you want, you'll be happier doing it at home. I would still say try a tournament. Try your guys, try, fitting the restrictions and things like that. Bring your guys and see how you do there, because you're going to come back and be better at your beer and pretzel games, and you'll probably get addicted like I did.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. When I started out, when I was thinking of Kill Team, what is it? I was thinking your guys. There's only 20, so you can make each one completely unique and really detailed, intricate paint jobs. And oh, this guy's got a scar because of a battle I had last week, that kind of stuff. Um, but because I enjoy it so much and it's quick to play and it feels a very similar niche to X-Wing, miniature game from
Mhm.
Fantasy Flight Games for me, it becomes, because it's so quick and easy, it becomes almost all consuming because
Yep.
suddenly it's like, oh well, that game went really quick. Let me make another list and we play again. And then it's like, oh well,
Yep.
that was fun too actually. Oh look, we've still got 4 hours. I'm gonna go buy another faction. Back in a sec. You know. Um,
Yeah.
and and because of its ease, like I couldn't do that for 40k. I don't have the time or the money. But for Kill Team,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what.
And it does help the competitive there too, because
Yes.
like for example, Michael's BAO roster for the Tyranids that did so well both days. I went and I bought that for $70. I got the bits and I built up that roster to test against. And could you do that in 40k? What would that involve? It 1850 or something like that.
6 months of
That would not
painting.
be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would not be an easy job. So it's really neat. This is why I say that Kill Team is more competitive. It's like not only is the gameplay that way, but man, you can duplicate things at the drop of a hat, play test against it, see hopefully what keeps them up at night, what they have that's going to scare you, things like that. It's just so cool, man. It's the best game. It really is.
Oh yeah, completely. I will say, Apocalypse is interesting me, but we'll leave that for
Yeah,
another time. We'll
Apocalypse.
leave that
Ooh.
for another
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
But yeah, yeah,
All right.
we'll talk about that
Yeah, I have
offline.
thoughts on Apocalypse.
Yeah,
Yes.
I want to hear them,
Nope, we
but
can
not
talk
now.
about it
But
later.
not now. Okay.
Not now. Nope.
So let's jump back to what you said. Actually, what do you think about including in competitive tournaments leveled up specialists? Obviously, you have to pay for them, but what do you think
Yeah,
about
you would
that?
have to do the 4 point
Yeah,
buy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
My experience playing against that. See, I played in campaign also. I played in a few campaigns simultaneously when that was going on, and I found that for me and the factions that I was playing, which was Tyranids and Deathwatch at the time, I would have just preferred to keep my guys at level 1, and that's what
Yes.
I did a lot of times. I would just scrap them. I made sure this was legal and okay at the time, but I would just scrap them, start over from level 1, because I found it more penalizing than helpful. Whereas there are some broken things with like Gene Stealer Cult when I started playing and messed around with them in actual campaign and with leveled up specialists. It was like, oh, these guys really do benefit from a few things here and there. So I think that it would be interesting again to play test. However, as somebody that played against this for the first time in a long time just last week as a tournament player, it was wacky. It was like, wait, why are you doing this? No, he doesn't reroll. Oh, he's a specialist. Okay, yes, level 3 and the this and I was having to be reminded all the time. So it's going to be something I would need a little bit of advance notice on that because I would need to refamiliarize myself with a lot of that. And there's a lot more interactions and weird things that can happen there.
So this is actually one of my total blind spots in the game. I do not know, genuinely, don't know what any specialist does above level 1. No
Yeah,
idea. None. Because
yeah,
exactly as you said, when we played the campaign the first time, I think I can't remember what factions were there, but like very quickly Grey Knights were knocked down to 4 models. It's like,
yes,
uh, and I didn't want to level up
yeah.
any of my Necrons at the time. So yeah, we did exactly what you did. We just scrapped them, went back to level 1s, and we never touched level 2s.
Yeah, what's nice is in Commanders is how the strategist spec with certain builds you can have it to where specialists within a certain distance count as 1 level higher, and that's just a passive buff.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
And so that was cool because, like for example, with I was creating kind of weird stacks. Like with the Tyranids, I had a Venom Cannon which you can only take 1 of, and everybody wishes they could take more. Well, suddenly you can make it have 3 rounds of firing in a single phase because there's a single-minded annihilation tactic, which again is normally 2 CP, but the strategist reduces costs of CP tactics down to buy 1 to a minimum of 1. So it's like only 1 point to now shoot a second time with that, and then you would have the level 2 heavy spec uh, ability there, and now shoot a third. And so there's some beardy, weird stack stuff that you can do, some combos and different things that are really interesting. Like, oh, you kill a model with this guy, now everybody within 3 inches or whatever has to take a nerve test. Just like, whoa! I mean, in a tournament, that would be really interesting. I don't know how it would do, how people would feel, but it is an interesting thing to consider.
Well,
And
well, it happens though. I mean, we don't play commanders competitively, but
mhm,
as mentioned, obviously, the guys in Ukraine do. They do. So that's another
yeah,
question, I suppose. Commanders as a tournament format.
yeah, I
You've
would.
seen what the Kiev format is, haven't you?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
watched your video. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think even without all the different stuff. Like, okay, you kill somebody with the commanders and you're at 50%. It's a lot of bookkeeping, and certain players are not into that. The combo players, the Johnnies and stuff, they would love that. I would love, I think, to play around with and game a little bit. But even just basic out of the book commanders, why are we not doing that ever? It's just it's I see no reason why we shouldn't sometimes have that be the format for a big tourney. It's like 40K, and we're starting to see it now with the points levels at SoCal Open. There's jump to 125. It's kind of like what you see there in the game's Big Brother. You don't just have every tournament is 1,000 points, things like that. It's like, oh, well, sometimes you do 1,250. It might be 1,850. It might be 2,500. And I kind of see ourselves in the same way. Like, we have all these options now. I've not been able to play commanders with elites myself. I did that playing against thing the other day, but it would be interesting to see how that does. Commanders and elites in a tournament with the format that we've been playing now, the Nova style, which is what Arena is based on. It's Nova with doors, basically. How do commanders do there? Nobody's really been testing that. As far as I know, maybe the Kiev guys do.
I believe they have a tournament tomorrow. I think that's their first one that's going to involve elites and commanders. So I'm looking forward to hearing what happens. I'm definitely interested in seeing if the inclusion of elites in reserves, obviously allowing some of your big models to come in on the rear board, is going to affect, how many cheap, weak strategists get included, or be really interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah.
But saying that, a quick note, you said just running commanders straight out of the book. I think that.
Well, with the different mission pack.
Oh no, yeah, sorry. With the Annihilate or whatever, with the tournament pack.
Yeah, Annihilation, Nova,
Yeah.
Arena, something like that.
But not adding a comp of some sort in there where you do whatever it is they do, kill points per commander, etc. Alex mentioned something interesting in the interview I did with him, where, and you know this, but he was one that brought it to my attention. It's quite obvious that Kill Team is balanced at 100 points, right? And we can believe it's balanced.
I don't know if it's balanced.
Well, all of the play testing was done at 100 points, and in theory, it's balanced at 100 points. Like, that's what Mike Brandt says, and he's the only person that has any sort of insider info. Whether or not we believe him, that's our individual choices. But I could believe that. I could believe it's balanced at 100, sure. And then if we go to commanders at 200, well, there's kind of the implication that that's inherently not balanced. It might be. It might accidentally have become balanced, but it's not. It wasn't play tested that way. Kill Team was tested at 100 points, and that's what everything was balanced around. That's what all of the points, for example, Custodes, they were obviously shoehorned into 100 points. Like, they should not be 33 points. They should be more, in line with everything else that is Terminator based. But
I guess that makes sense because, like, if you think about it, the 4 frags you max out at 100, the 8 plasmas on the Imperial Guard you max out at 100. So that's one thing I noticed it looking at 125 and sussing out some of these other factions. Some factions gain a lot, some don't. Some are better, going to be stronger at that lower points level.
Exactly. Yeah. For example, Deathwatch inherently, because you've got your 4 frags in there, or 3 frags in an Infernus, and then you're kind of like, well, I've taken that. Don't need anything else really. I guess I'll chuck a guy.
Yeah. Now it's about objectives. It's like, oh my god, I need bodies.
Yeah. So I can believe that Kill Team was balanced at 100 points. It kind of seems to make sense, and so I'm a fan with that concept in mind that if you go above, you are unbalancing the game. Now, obviously, this is assuming that they managed to absolutely 100% nail balance at 100 points. Don't know if they did. But if you
Hmm.
go to 125, you are going to throw that balance out. And equally, if you go to 200 commanders, well, now it's completely out of whack because I don't think commanders are balanced at all. But that's fine. And would you not want to implement some sort of comp to that format to attempt to make it more balanced?
Well, I would be wary of going into it blind. We would have to test it first as a community and do several events and things like that, and then come back, find where the problems are, because otherwise we're just throwing darts at a board with a blindfold on, and we don't know what the problem is we're trying to solve. Like right now, a lot of people, the main complaint about commanders is that you'll often just see psyker specs and strategist specs. And so they saw that as a big problem to the game. And again, this comes from the player personalities wanting different things. For a tournament player, that works great. But because people, I would go and I'd said, look, this is what I should do. You should just pick the strategist spec, blah, blah, blah. Other people who were not in that mindset but still wanted to win went on and picked that, and then it became kind of like this is how we play commanders. Whereas my strategist spec builds, as nasty as they would be, or my psyker specs, I mean, a buddy could show up. My friend who's very competitive would show up with his Harlequins and run Codex Rafflestump on me with the Harlequins and a Death Jester shooting spec, for example. So it wasn't the only thing out. It was just at the beginning, as a combo player, this is what I looked at and was talking about, and pushed people online to do and stuff. And as that kind of spread, and as people found that themselves, as look, this is the quick, easy first thing to jump onto to have early success in commanders, we started to see that kind of proliferation of those two specialists. But it's not the only thing. So a lot of what has been proposed to fix commanders is based on what I feel to be an erroneous idea, which is, hey, these two things are the best. That needs to change because people are only playing this. And it's kind of like, well, to me, it speaks to balance that so many factions have that ability to either take the psyker or a strategist. Everybody has that tool. If they want to run combos and wacky things, that's there. If they want to play jank, they can do it. But there are some other options in there, and it wasn't around enough and loved enough and fostered enough in the community to be really understood. It was a brief flash in the pan that was there, and we just barely figured it out, and then all of a sudden we jumped onto Nova missions. And this is the way to play. You're playing at 100 points, you're playing with the objectives, 3 equals more, blah, 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 no commanders, 100 points, and this became competitive kill. And it has not really changed much. BAO was the first time we saw some real changes through the free choice secondaries and things like that, and the introduction of elites. So I don't know.
So
The commanders,
I
we don't know
agree
enough to say.
that we as a community dropped commanders. I never saw any commanders tournament. Okay, I'll admit that my local scene isn't huge, but I've never seen anyone play commanders outside of the 4 games I played. Um,
Yeah,
but Ukraine has been running commanders since it released, both casual games and
yeah,
tournaments. That's all they play.
yeah, man.
No, I'm just
When it
saying
came out
they've
for me,
already come up with
I
comps. You know.
I saw it as the ideal way to play. When I first started seeing it, to me, it felt more balanced. It felt like things that were really struggling, like my Gene Stealer cults, were suddenly great, man. And that's what we needed. We needed that quality shooting that we got with that Psyker spec dropping the Cybolts. It was like,
Sure,
wow,
yeah.
these guys are really good. And then my first game, I first game I ever played Commanders was against Harlequins, and I one-shotted a Shadow Spec or a Shadow Seer with a non-specialist Rock Cutter because that instant death rule is like boom, dead, just removed from the board. The second game, I used Mind Control from the Magus to make a Knob Combi Scorcha his own war boss, leaving like 1 point of health left on him in round 1.
Well, that is the
And
dream combo. The
Yeah,
Scorcher.
that's what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying.
yeah.
It was like, oh my god, this is great. This is, wonderful. And then you had certain factions got the buff, some didn't. And at the same time, so there was a split in the community that wasn't interested in playing commanders because now it's a different points level. That's another barrier to entry. There was that 200 point. Suddenly, it's double the amount of models or double the amount of points at least. And right around then, we also had the proliferation of Nova missions hitting the local metas. So it just kind of went away. But I don't know, man. I don't know how much would need to be fixed because like I said, that's a faction you haven't heard much about is the Gene Stealer cults, and they would be top tier in my opinion in commanders.
I was actually
So,
going to ask a question about Gene Stealer cults towards the end. But
okay,
you know what? I'll ask it now. But
okay.
this is a bit of a far-ranging question. But thinking of 125-point tournament things, I've been trying to think which is the weakest faction at that level. I don't care who's
Hmm.
the strongest, but who's the weakest? And I think it might be Gene Stealer Cults. What do
No,
you
you're gonna make me
think?
have to start playing them.
Well, yeah,
I
me
think
too. Yeah, because
Gene
they
Stealer
didn't get
cults.
anything.
Well, I think that they got a lot with Pauper Princes
Mm,
because, like for example, your rock cutters, which are instant death, would normally be hitting on a 4. You put Pauper Princes on there, you're hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s with 2 attacks base, non-specialist for 12 points to instant death anything in the game as long as it can survive long enough to get in close combat.
mm,
Um, and then you also have, let's just look at the 7-point basic hybrid acolyte, which is 3 attacks, 2 of which AP -1, AP -4, hitting on 3s, rerolling all. That is really good versus a lot of different factions. And at
mm.
125, you can take, I think it's like 17 of them, something like that. It's disgusting. If you wanted to just spam it,
Yeah,
it was something like 58 attacks or something potentially per turn. I ran the math on,
right.
um, and that's 2/3 of which are AP1, AP4, and rerolling all 2 hit. That's just very good.
So
I
I haven't looked at them since Elites. I'll be honest. And but I did all the maths with them in core and at 100
mhm,
points. And I would not have said they were the worst faction in core.
yeah,
But in Elites,
yeah.
I haven't looked at them close enough to really say, but I don't feel they gained anything. Rerolling ones to hit is nice, but and you are generally going to be a close combat faction, so that's fair.
Oh, it's rerolling all.
Oh, rerolling. Oh, okay, that is pretty
Yeah,
fancy.
man.
Okay, okay,
So hitting on 4s, rerolling all. Hitting on 3s,
okay,
rerolling all. Like, oh my
okay.
god. The problem is that the gene stealers that you're bringing in can't benefit from that.
No, sure,
So
sure.
it's like sadness. But
Yeah.
that gene stealer that you're running at 11 or 12 points, depending on how you upgrade them,
AP -3. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and also depending on how you upgrade them with the extended carapace or not, and things like that, and the toxin sacks, whatever, they can be 12 points. Well, for 7 points, you're basically getting the same chassis. You're just getting less movement.
Mm.
However, the 2-inch less movement, you do still have a chance for Colt Ambush to
Yeah.
happen. So I don't know. Maybe weakest. Here's the thing: weakest faction might not also equal non-viable. It might not
Oh no,
be
no, not at all.
a faction could be weak, but they could probably still work. Like for me, the one that I saw
100%.
as the weakest for a long time was the Chaos Space Marines, Heretic Astartes, and they were still doing well at certain tournaments
Yeah.
because they had that one build, and we were playing a game style that rewarded spam. So they could spam on cultists and stuff, and just dominate the board there, and a lot of times they do okay. But that's what I saw as the weakest faction for a long time. Now,
Yeah.
that's the thing is I don't know if Elites is going to change that. Maybe they're not the weakest anymore. Maybe I need to reevaluate.
I think
So
they're good. Berserkers on their
yeah, the
own
Berserkers.
raise them to a whole nother tier easily, easily.
Yeah,
Now they can
I
do
can't wait to
cultist
play against
spam.
them.
I haven't played against them. I'll admit that, but I don't want to. Holy crap. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I want to see, is it going to be still cultist spam, but with a few more buff guys in there? There's a few more special weapons like the Berserker Sergeant analog, or is it going to be a completely different faction for the most part that we haven't really faced yet because this model just wasn't available? Is it suddenly going to become the Berserker faction? I don't know. We'll have to see kind of what happens, and that's what I'm excited about, is seeing what it becomes. It's just a big question mark for me right now. If somebody is running this and they show up to a tournament, is it something similar to what I've already experienced, or is it something I have no idea and have not faced yet? So
I
I don't know.
guess
It's going to be interesting.
mentally, if I were to build a list, I would view them in the same vein as I'd see Tyranids and Death Guard now. You're going to have a few big units, but then you're going to flood the board with the small guys. Although I guess, yeah, that's how I would run them, just instinctively. But they do have
Yeah,
some nice options. You know that they have killy units now. You could just
that's what
spam
I'm saying.
berserkers.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that once you start indulging in some of those, you might not have the points left to dominate through spamming bodies on the board.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you might have tipped the scales too much on one end, and that tactic is no longer viable uh, with the models that you've chosen and basically put down as mandatory inclusion models. You might not be able to do a mix. So I'm really interested to see what happens with those. But they were what I thought was the weakest faction. To answer your question, I don't know if it's still them. I don't know if it's cults. I don't know. I hear a lot of people struggling with Dark Eldar right now. That their lists that they ran are suddenly non-viable. There's a lot of salt in that community right now.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't think that they're the weakest. I think
no.
that they have really they're a mainly melee faction, and they got some things to do that pretty well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was running Drakari. I was more than happy with them. I think
Hmm.
they're not top tier. You know, you're not face rolling tournaments, but they
Yeah,
have a niche and they can do it really quite well. Yeah. I mean, yeah. They're doing just fine.
yeah,
They're doing just fine
yeah.
in
So I don't
my
know if they're
opinion.
the weakest, despite
Yeah.
a lot of calls for that right now.
Mm.
I mean, that's the thing too, is you can't trust what people are saying. The loudest voices,
They're all liars.
like for a long time. Yeah, well, they don't know. That's the thing, is
Yeah,
like the loudest voice on a Discord server that I had belonged to earlier in the game's history, um, went on and on about how bad Eldar was, and they were the only Eldar player really in that disco. And then after months of debating them on different things, it came out that I saw them in a reply to somebody else say that they hadn't even played a game. Like, man, I wasted all this time
ooh,
talking, and this is the theory hammer, and blah blah
man.
blah. It's like done. I just like I'm done with this server.
That would annoy me.
Um,
Yeah, that would annoy me.
yeah, yep. And so that's the thing, is that it's equal opportunity access right now to the internet, and anybody can go and say things. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know what the weakest faction is. It makes me Basically, it makes me hesitant to listen to the dissenting voices of Drukari right now. I don't know. There's a lot of that out there. I don't know if it's accurate. And
Let me paint you a
I
picture.
guess
Let me paint you a picture, okay? You can
okay.
run a team of, I think they're 9 points a model, 8 points a model. So you can run 10 of them easy and still take some big meaty guys. You have 4 up invuln, T4, 5 up field no pain, no 6 up field no pain, sorry. Um, and all of your weapons are poison, so wounding on 4s with those
Hmm.
guys, 2 attacks. And those are your normal guys, okay? Like, if you can't see benefit in that, if you can't see a use in 4 up invuln, 6 up feel no pain guys, I feel maybe we're playing different games. And those
Yeah,
aren't your killer units. Those are your regular guys. You're not killing things with
yeah.
them. You're just camping objectives. I
It
think that's fine.
reminds me. It reminds me a lot of Harlequins, but perhaps
Yes,
better because you still have Vucabolites and things like that
and
to
half the
potentially
cost.
play with. Yeah, true.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But anyway,
that would be an interesting one because they're definitely not weak in close combat, but it's something that we have never really
no.
seen anybody run. Um, and they are very much one-trick ponies that elites didn't break out. Like we talked about the cultist spam thing. Elites gave a complete other option, whereas
Yes.
elites did not
Yeah.
do that to Harlequins. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We have to see.
Harlequins are another I haven't really looked at. I know they didn't get any models similar to Gene Stealer Cults.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I haven't looked at their masks close enough to really say anything conclusive about them. Yeah.
I've played, I think, 4 games against them in Elite
Okay.
so far, and it's been versus the same opponent who is choosing the range extension buff. And yeah, the thing about it is it's like it's a buff to falling back. I think that there might be a more competitive thing there because he's expecting to fall back, and it's like that's not what Harlequins do. You want to get in there, absolutely kill, move on to the next thing, absolutely kill, move on to the next thing. Whereas if you're surviving long enough to where you're hoping to fall back that extra distance onto an objective or something, then you're going to have to survive my round of melee.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
yes, you have that
definitely.
4-up invuln, but you're T3, and I'm pushing a lot of things through. Where a guy that you might not look at on paper and think is scary, he might actually have a lot of attacks that even if they don't have AP, that doesn't matter against you anyway. And as Harlequins with a 4-up invuln. So with 3 attacks going through, hitting on 3s, statistically, I'm coming to an injury roll either way. So I don't know. Harleys are in a weird place right now. So I think they're
Mm,
disgusting once they get in,
mm.
and it's hard to shoot them. A lot of the things that should theoretically work well against them, like flamers, are hard because they can stay outside that range and charge from outside auto hit Overwatch range. But in terms of like holding objectives, things like that, there's a few aspects to them that start to give them challenges, I think, right now.
I guess my other thought, apart from Gene Stealer Cults, was maybe Orcs. Now, Orcs have recently done very well in Arena, and I totally understand why they've done well in Arena. But if we
Yeah.
look outside of Arena, I feel they're still pretty weak, or is that me being a bad player at
No,
Orcs?
they're super fast now. That's the thing, is that the blood
Oh,
axes
okay.
go fast thing
Okay.
really sets them up. But I think that they have a hard time actually making combat in
Mm,
on an open board.
okay. Okay.
It's like I talked about in the AdMech video. You can intercept them, and if you have something that can drop 18 hits in one turn, I mean, this is a shooting faction. It's supposed to be you get in melee and destroy them, but they get halfway up the board and get intercepted, and then that entire blob goes away. And that's the problem with running hordes a lot of times, is you're close enough to split shots, split attacks, just because we're playing on a small board. So I don't know. I think that Gene Stealer cults do almost everything Orcs do, but better. That's why I would say, like, if you were considering running Orcs at SoCal Open, seriously look at Gene Stealer cults, because I think that if you want the guys that can one-shot things, they can do that. If you want mass bodies that drop a lot of attacks, they can do that. They also have now re-rolling all hits, or +1 to strength if you choose Twisted Helix instead as a sub-faction. They have the potential for the Cult Ambush move, better LD, which is a big thing for Orcs.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so, yeah, I don't know. Orcs are in an interesting place, but I lost my last game against them in Arena. There's a player that was at
Oh,
LVO
Arena.
that
Yeah.
I had played against there. Yeah, we had played final round there, and it got called for time. And then so I played with Deathwatch, I believe it was, in Arena against Orcs, and This is the same thing that, like I said, I can't beat my own Death Watch in Arena with my own Tyranid builds, but he managed to do it with another horde of the Orcs. They just move so fast uh, that on Arena it's interesting to see them with the red goes fast thing.
Was that 100 points or 125?
Yes.
100.
Yep, 100.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, anyway, this wasn't meant to be the main. This was really just a personal question I could have asked outside of the interview, um,
Oh,
because
no
I
worries.
I like to be a faction hipster, and if somebody tells me this faction is the weakest, I'd be like, Games Workshop website pre-order, yeah.
Yes.
Um, but yeah. So I'm kind of because I was on the AdMech train. I Nobody was really talking about them. I felt they then just had a new like transport shown for 40k, and I was like, oh yeah, nobody's
Hmm.
really no, the AdMech channel in my Discord isn't that hot. Um,
Yeah.
I'll I'll buy them up. I'll run that, see how they do. They seem interesting. I've only faced against them once. Then suddenly, for some reason, it exploded out of nowhere. And everybody seems to be doing an AdMech army at the moment, which makes me feel a bit sad.
Yeah.
But there you go. Yeah.
Well, we'll see how they do because a lot of people are playing them with the Timmy traps. They're playing in terms of this is what I want to play. This is how I feel it should be played. I like this model. Whereas there's a lot of numbers, combinations, stacks, and deliberate builds and synergies that could be in a list and a roster that a lot of people are leaving out. And that's what has been the downfall for them for a long time is one, people not playing them, and two, when they play them, they're not playing a truly optimized ad mech. And if we eliminate those two, we will see them in top eights. I am sure of it. They are just so strong.
They're
Uh,
very versatile. They can do everything.
yeah.
I feel. I feel. Yeah. I think they are a strong faction, which is why I was hoping to take them along to my next tournament and kind of bust them out, win, and then never touch them again.
Hmm.
That's my plan. I just have to win
Yeah.
now. So yeah.
Like the thing about it is that I see what a lot of people are saying with, like for example, UR025. I did a video on the AdMech recently, and people are asking, uh, why I'm so hard on UR025 and stuff, and it's like they pointed out the leadership, for example, which is true. AdMech don't have the best leadership.
No.
And he comes in and he buffs that, and that's a great thing. My problem with him, the main problem, and with a lot of these new guys, what do you drop to put him in, or one of these new guys? Because everything in there is so crucial, and with the basic strategy, of the AdMech as a roadmap to success, that anybody can really follow and do well. I feel it's going to be tough, I think, to bring some things out and bring some things in. But there is still melee builds if you're going to go complete melee versus other melee. I I don't know if I would do that, but I see it as potentially pretty scary because you can get some weird, wacky things going. Uh, so I don't know. We'll see what happens with AdMech. I don't think I have all the answers. I think that somebody might surprise me because there's so many different ways to stack things and interact within that faction, and then now elites, and then the new sub factions and stuff like that. That we might see people pull stuff out that I haven't seen yet.
I think they have this weird. So this is all part of what's kind of, especially with sub factions now. I need a bigger roster. Oh my gosh. Trying to
Oh,
create with AdMech
okay.
two sub factions on there because they effectively have to be
Mm-hmm.
completely different lists, don't they? You can't swap in any of the models. I could not do it. Um, yeah, I really struggled because, as you say, one of the sub factions allows you to, I think, reroll wound rolls or reroll ones
Yeah,
with the wound roll.
reroll wound rolls of one.
Yeah.
Yep.
So obviously,
Yeah.
if you're going
Uh,
melee, you take that. Brilliant. Um, but to have an entire melee list in there, but then it doesn't interact with your Metallica or your Agrippina. And it's like, well, there's
Hmm.
literally no point having them there. So you need two completely separate lists. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But
Yeah.
that's just me
Yeah,
griping.
I've with the shooting thing, I think I'm at 9 models or 10 models. So uh, in the video, it has a list basically that would be, I say, the core to kind of think about and build around.
Yes.
And so that you could probably do. You could probably get away with doing that and then running something else, and you could probably carry over the data tether model, the Vanguard Alpha Zealot,
Well,
and
no,
then the
because they'd
Princeps.
have a sub faction, which would then cancel out the sub faction of
Oh,
models
you're
for you.
right. It would be a different
It would have to be
subfaction.
completely separate.
Yes,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
would
yeah.
be no carryover.
None
Ooh,
at all.
interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, so AdMech does fit very nicely into a 9 model list. I agree. And I've come up with a pretty close, little list. I think it is 9 models, but I have two variations. The core's the same, but then I swap out 3 models
Hmm.
from the plasma to the horde or whatever, to the horde killers,
Yeah.
the Corpuscari priests, which is great because they're both 13 points. You don't have to think about it. Um, but then that means actually your list isn't it's 12 models because you've got to have those 3 on the side and they have to be the same sub faction. So I
Yes.
then can't make a list out of only 8 models. But anyway,
And also, you might still want to keep a plasma caliber or two in there because you look at a horde list like Tyranids, for example, with that
yeah,
crucial synapse linchpin.
plasmas are always good.
The
Yeah,
plasmas, man, they can one shot a lictor, they can one shot a warrior, no problem.
yeah,
And you
yeah,
can have up to 2 guys hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. So
yes.
with 2 shots each, that you can advance and still shoot. So the plasma calibers are still viable
Oh yeah,
versus
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah,
a lot of stuff. But that then leads back into your issue of needing more space on your roster
yeah.
because for some factions you might not want to still bring the plasma faction, or I mean the plasma calibers or something.
Sure.
You might want arc rifles,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got sidetracked there with random list building
Yes.
stuff. I can't remember why. Uh, moving on.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, 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 no. It was me asking questions about weakest factions. Okay.
Rambly Beeranid did it again.
No, no, no.
Dang it.
Okay, so we kind of already touched on this a little bit, but kill points. You're
Skill
not
points.
for them then.
I think that with free choice secondaries that I would argue that we basically have kill points. You can stack bounty hunters, attrition,
Hmm.
um, a cut apart, obliterate. I mean, whatever you want, you can stack these things together. There are several on there that could benefit somebody that is gearing their list towards killing things. And if you have a tanky killy thing, Grey Knights, I think the best thing for Grey Knights would be open choice secondaries, free choice secondaries, um, because you can gear it towards that. This is what I do. I want to get my guys in there. I want to do close combat. Well, that's it. So, and then with the mortal wound thing, attrition is great to always have because not only will you have your close combat, things like your flamers or your silencers or whatever you want to bring, uh, you would have that mortal wound to also help ensure that you are taking out more models per turn.
Okay.
So,
Fair. Yeah, no, you're,
yeah.
you're you're right. A lot of the secondaries are kill X in the Y phase. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Fair enough. So back to commanders. Now, obviously, neither of us have really experienced commanders, so just expand your mind for a moment. Um,
I played a lot of it when it first came out,
sure,
um, but yeah, not in
but
a
no
long time.
tournaments. Yeah, yeah,
No tournaments. Nope.
yeah.
I
So,
wish.
so again, this is going back to the idea that the strategist spec is significantly better than any other spec just because CP are so valuable, right?
Mm,
What if you got again? This is somebody in my comments mentioned it, and I liked it. What if you got 1 CP per 20 points your commander cost.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, so you're talking about starting with like 5 CP.
If you take a 100-point command, you'd have 5 CP base. Yeah.
And then would it return back to 2 CP per turn afterwards, or
Oh,
would it be
yeah.
another 5 rounds?
That would be a starting CP amount. I don't think you'd want 5 CP a turn. That would be too much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a thing on that
Go.
would make strategists even, grosser. I don't know if you would even do this, but you could do that plus tactical planner upgrade for 15 points, which starts you with another
D3.
little bit of CP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you would have the strategist spec himself would generate 1. So you would still be starting with 5, whereas I'm starting with about 8 or something as a strategist. Could I even use all that? I don't know. But yeah, I don't know that strategist is the best. I think that it really goes well for control players. It's like a control deck. If you're familiar with any kind of trading card games, that's what it does a lot of times. It reduces your costs for things. It says, oh, you want your guy to run up and do a metabolic overdrive. Well, that 2 CP metabolic overdrive, I can pay 1 CP as an opposing strategist and now make that cost 3 CP for you to do, which you cannot do now because you cannot afford. So he is now stuck in the middle of the board. 25-point model, boom, everybody readies and shoots. So I don't know. That's where they are strong. But they're often coming on guys with 4 wounds, which, like I said, the 4-wound Shadow Seer, which was a Psyker spec, admittedly, but that went away 1 turn. And also, you look at things like the Gene Stealer cults and that mind control ability. Are you making sure you're obscured from your own guys? I highly doubt it. And so that Gene Stealer cult guy is going to come in and put one of your own guns onto your guy, and boom. So there are counters to the strategist spec that people are just. We live in an instant gratification era, and people don't want to find the solution. They want to go online and complain about how broken something, rather than say, oh, this is an easy fix. I just never thought of it this way. And that's the real issue with the strategist spec, in my opinion, is that people just didn't figure it out. They didn't say, oh, wait, this faction, like AdMech, I don't have a lot of need for extraneous CP banking. I have things built in. And guess what? This canticle costs me nothing. So I'm going to run up and I'm going to shoot you to death. Turn 2. I'm going to break your back. I can one-shot your commander. And that's it. And pretty soon, you're going to see, oh, they're going to try and take something else against AdMech. It's just that people didn't apply themselves and find the solution. They went on and said, oh, everybody's choosing strategists, specs, and psychers, and it's broken, rather than find a solution. So I don't know. I don't know if that would be a good thing, because I don't see it as solving the problem that a lot of people are proposing fixes for, which the problem that they are seeing is the strategist. I would keep things, I think, how it is, and let us spend more time as a community with dedicated, competitive players actually looking at this before we decide that there's a problem. Because we haven't had that. We haven't had tourneys upon tourneys where the best minds in the game have looked at this and identified basically what's going on. I don't know. Maybe they did that in Kiev, but I don't know. I haven't played against the people in Kiev. I haven't seen their tourneys. I don't know if they're truly beardy. A lot of times people are not beardy. They are good at having a single list that they just show up and roll dice with.
Just to add to that, one of the people I played with ran as a sub-faction for Adeptus Astartes. Guess what?
What?
Ultramarines.
Who
runs... Anyway, so yeah, they're not the
I've been
beard.
running a lot of Space Wolves. I've been running
really?
Space Wolves like crazy.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that for the war gear?
Despite
or
them being
the
a shooting faction? Yes, it's for the war gear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because the veteran sergeant, or the veterans, company veterans go from max 0 or max 4 to max any.
Yeah.
And you can take a jump pack on them. You
Yeah.
can take a flamer and a sword on them if you wanted to. So the war gear options are why I choose that a lot of times. and that's my horde counter for arena right now. Is a lot of that kind of stuff. Whereas,
What's
so if they come in, I have 3 attacks in melee. If and to get in, you had to survive Overwatch with an auto hitting flamer, and I have fly, so I'm getting there. I'm blocking doors. I'm moving over you to get where I want to be and flame this guy. I'm holding position over your objectives, threatening it from a very early turn. It's a really good system.
what's what's the Space Wolves allowing you to take there? The Flamer?
Yeah, I can take like for example, like 2 guys with jump packs and flamers and
No, no, I
chain
mean
swords each.
what the Space Wolves gives you access to special war gear, obviously, with the company vets.
Oh,
What is it that the
yeah,
Space Wolf
I'm. It
gives you
was
there?
it was inconsequential. I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
What it was is that you have access to unlimited company veterans, and as space wolves, they can take a jump pack. Company veterans,
Why not just take a Vanguard vet and go Salamanders?
because Vanguard vets cannot take flamers.
Ah, okay, right,
They have to
gotcha.
take pistols
Yeah,
or close combat.
gotcha, gotcha.
So
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
So with the Space Wolves, 16 points gets me a regular Marine with a flamer and a chainsword, and he hits on 2s in close combat. That's a very good
Yeah,
horde counter.
that's a good answer to hordes. Space Marines don't really have that outside of
Yeah,
hard to take massed flamers at least. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Now in open board, see that's the thing. I'm thinking about doing them for SoCal Open, and in open board, I'm probably going to do an entirely different roster. I'll probably rely more on the salamanders. I'll probably have more missile launchers in there, stuff like that. And it's painful for me to give this away this early because people will have 4 months to counter me now. But yeah, I think that it's very strong. I think Astartes are in the running now for top tier.
Well, don't worry. Only the people that get an hour and a half into this interview will know. Uh, so it's just
They have
me and
to
my mum
earn
probably.
it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, no, I think Astartes are strong, definitely. I top tier, not sure, not sure, but
Wait till you see them. Wait till you see it. I'm
I'll
tempted to
admit, yeah,
live stream
I'll do it.
the the tournament on Sunday,
Oh,
but
okay,
it's only 100, so it's like a light version of my list. I can only take the
gotcha.
one flyer and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how that does at 100. I haven't play tested it, but it's strong as hell at 125 in arena.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
in arena, yeah. SoCal Open's going to be open, or is it arena?
it's 1 day or
Oh
open 1 day
yes,
arena.
it is. Yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, fair enough.
So that's why I'm thinking about doing 2 different rosters. 1 day, you know, dedicated arena. 1 day dedicated to open board.
Yeah,
And I'm still not even sure if I would do Astartes on the open board. There's a lot of other strong things, and also like we were just talking about the Gene Stealer cults in arena, 17 or so acolytes. That's pretty nasty. They also have the flamers. You
yeah,
can take one as a demo.
yep.
So I don't know. We'll have to see. Have to see what happens there.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Arena and open are completely different games in my mind. Like I will happily say take one team and say, yeah, I could probably get close to top tables with this team in
Mm-hmm.
arena, but if you put me open, I'm like, nope. I mean, even if I got to change the roster, I just nah, I can't play that team in open.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yep. I feel a very similar way. That like my Death Watch, tourney winning Death Watch. The same thing that did really well in arena would just get smoked on an open board. Same list.
Yeah,
It would
yeah.
just not have a chance. Yeah.
Okay, so here's possibly a simple one that people did not need to dig through an hour and 40 minutes of interview to get the answer to, because this would have been a good opening question. But in tournaments, should tactics from boxes be useful or banned?
Hmm. I
Yeah,
would say yes, especially now that Elites has come out and published many of those, but other factions just got overlooked. For example, Deathwatch have several that are not game breaking at all, that just did not see print. And it was like elites added a lot of the things for a lot of factions, but you know, like Death Denied has been in the game for a long time and people are just finding out about it. And yes, I've been playing this way, um, as if it should be legal. And guess what? Here we have it now in print in a book that is now tourney legal. So I think so. I think we should, just by virtue of the fact that all the other factions did. And if something didn't make it in, it was probably an oversight as they rushed to sell you the big new kits and the different models and stuff. You know, we got, oh, you can jump pack assault in now. Well, gee, that's great. Now that I finally have the ability to use this, but these cards that I paid for many months ago, can I use those? You know, people have bought it. It's an officially printed GW product that has not been officially FAQ'd. Why not? Why not? Just let them run them.
Yeah, so I'm of the same opinion. It's really good that they've taken some of the faction defining tactics and put them into the elites book. That's great. You know, no negatives there. But if you
Yeah,
paid what 40, how much are they over in America? $60 for
yeah.
for
The starting boxes and
yeah.
stuff, the
So if
faction
you've paid
boxes,
$60 for 8 pieces of card, it's like yeah, you can use them. I think that's okay. You know,
which is
I
exactly what I did.
yeah
Yeah, I had to
yeah
do that for my Gene Stealers. I already had 120 Stealers for a now defunct um, Gene Stealer cult list for 7th. You know, they have no problem coming along and saying, oh, 120 box models that you can only get 8 per box at $25 per box. Yeah, those worthless now. You know, so not only did they do that, but then they released the cards that you could only get for buying more of those things that I can't use in Big 40K. And I did it, you know, like an idiot. I fed the beast. Um, and yeah, I want to be able to use those. But now that a
definitely.
lot of it's been FAQ, like um, the thing about that is they had 2 different printings of Metabolic Overdrive and stuff. One in the book, one in the thing. And we were like,
Yes.
what do we do?
And
So that
Games
was an
Workshop's
issue.
amazing answer was, "Oh, use whichever one you want,"
Yeah,
which is
which
a
one is
terrible
clearly
answer.
more competitive.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they came and they FAQ'd it to be like nothing like either of the text and not like a merger of both. It's very procedural and very much like, oh geez, what now? If I do X, I can do Z, but I can't do Y and Z. I have to do A first to be able to do. It just was like, oh my god! And so SoCal Opens, the Kill Team Stream preemptive FAQ is it brought the old one back, man. It's so great. It's like you can do anything and then you can do anything. Like, oh,
Yes.
Tyranids, I
That's
miss
the way
you.
to
I
do it.
missed you so
That's the way
bad.
to do it.
Yep,
Yeah. That's
yep.
side note, having that up on a website that's easy to go and see, really useful. Um,
Gee,
yeah,
GW, I
yeah.
wonder what would be a good idea to do from these people that aren't making any money off of it are able
Yeah.
to figure out. Uh, I wonder what that says.
Mm. Best not to dwell on that.
Yeah,
I think that was about it. Da, da, da. Yeah,
we'll close on that. Beeranid's a jerk. All right, that's it. Have
no,
a great
not
day,
at all,
everybody.
not at all. I mean, ultimately, as we said earlier, you know, every answer we gave here, every suggestion I made or question I asked there was always with the caveat of I'm only talking about tournaments. Casual players do whatever you want, doesn't matter. And
Yep.
the obvious answer is we need more data, 100%, 100%. I mean, but I don't think we should hold back from the idea of a ban list. You know, even the biggest, you know, Magic the Gathering has a ban list, right? Any serious competitive game has a ban list. Now, they get to a ban list by having a hell of a lot of tournaments and data, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we should ban models under 6 points or something ridiculous like that. But, you know,
Yeah.
like I would not be adverse to the idea of a ban list coming along at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have too many factions right now that I know I would be affected by one of those, and then I would be upset about it.
Um,
Nah, my
well, no, I think a ban list has to be something that is truly game breaking. Like
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Have you found anything in there like that yet?
No, not really. Nothing that I would say goes on a ban list. Definitely not.
Yeah,
I
same.
think all things considered, actually, the game's pretty balanced. It's not terrible, and there's a hell of a lot of player skill involved. You
Yeah.
can give the best list that maybe Michael Holy's going to run and dominate with to somebody that's never played Eldar. They're just going to get wiped.
Oh
That's
yeah.
that's a great
Yeah.
sign. That is a great sign of player skill, which is exactly what we want to know about in tournaments, being a big factor. So that's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
I
It's like I
could
said about
see,
Beardy versus
yes,
Solid last
yeah,
time or earlier.
I could see points adjustments as
Hmm.
opposed to a ban list. That I don't think, to be clear, I don't think Games Workshop will ever do it. Obviously, they don't care. But I could see,
Yeah.
a community run points changing being a thing. Again, once we've had a lot more data, but that wouldn't surprise me overly. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to handle this anymore. We haven't had an FAQ post Rogue Traders, post Commanders, post Arena. I mean, now Elites. We are 4 supplements over uh, past the last FAQ. So it is going to have to be community, I think, because I don't know how. I mean, what are they going to do? Drop a 40-page FAQ and a? I just don't know. It's going to be
No, no, no.
it's going
Even
to have to be
worse.
so in depth.
Even worse. They're going to give us a one-page FAQ that just corrects a
Oh,
typo in one of the missions, and that's it. It's like,
do not speak this evil.
oh,
Oh,
that'd be amazing if they did that. They should do that. Just troll us for one day. Next day, release the full pack. But day one, just
yeah,
here's the FAQ, guys. We know you've been waiting a long time. One entry. It's like, fuck.
yeah, and that's the
That'd be
thing too
amazing.
is that the one FAQ we did get proposed, it brought up a lot of questions,
It did,
and it
yeah.
set a dangerous precedent. Like for example, toxin sacks uh, and the all is dust rule for the
Yes.
Thousand Suns. It's like,
Yes. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so if I attack a Drukari Witch with a Tyranid warrior, I have to look at the Thousand Suns entry in the FAQ for a save modifier for them
Mm.
to find out how the damage roll is determined on a like what is happening? So you're changing
Yeah.
Tyranid war
Yeah.
gear
Yeah.
or specifying Tyranid war gear in the Thousand Suns section, and I'm going to have to pick that up in a game that might not involve Thousand
Yeah.
Suns, and so it leads us to ask riveting questions such as, what does 1+1 really add up to?
Yeah.
And
You know what?
it set the dangerous.
Yeah.
Huh?
Reading that rule,
Yeah.
I thought it equaled 2. Turns out I was
Mm-hmm.
incorrect, if I'm honest.
Yes, it equals sometimes 2. It equals 2 if it's a 2 damage weapon,
Yes.
but not on the injury roll, which if you are looking at the damage, that's how you would usually determine what is on the injury roll. So by
Yeah. Yeah.
saying it becomes damage 2, it would normally mean that that's a modifier, but it sets this weird precedent
It's
that you have
bizarre.
to infer if X then Y, because A sometimes versus this faction means Z. And that is the rules writing that we get. And so thank you, Kill Team Stream, for putting out this preemptive SoCal FAQ and
Yes.
letting
Yeah.
us ask the questions and actually, hey, having feedback and getting it out there and getting an answer so we know what to expect 4 months early before
Definitely.
this SoCal Open tournament.
Definitely.
So excited about that, happy for it. Even if somebody doesn't agree with some of these things, we know how to proceed and how to prep now for SoCal, and that's great.
That's what I always say. There's lots of small rule vagueness. I do not care which
Mhm.
way it's ruled. I don't care if I think you've gone raw or rules as intended or whatever. As long as I know, that's fine. And as long as everyone's playing
Yeah,
it the same way, great.
yeah. I mean, I still don't know. I like I said, I just built a Eldar team. I still don't know if I can advance and fire grenades because they have that battle focus rule.
Yeah,
So, but
I
there's
know.
that rule that says that you cannot advance and shoot grenades. So,
Yeah.
does battle focus just now count for legal assault based weapons, or just it mentions heavy? It's like, what can I do with my army? So yeah, it's a weird thing. I think the consensus is I can,
Um,
but I
I
would
don't
like
know.
a more
After
official
hearing
TO.
my guys talk about it, I was under the impression you couldn't.
See, there we
Exactly.
go, and it's going to be different every. So what do we do?
Yep.
Oh, if there's a rules disagreement, roll off. Gee, that'll be nice to do
Ugh.
every opponent,
Yeah.
every game, and never know where I stand before
Exactly.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
show up to a tournament,
Yeah.
and have to guess things out, which nobody that is seriously taking or that is taking the tournament seriously is going to want to do.
No.
They're going to want to know ahead of time. These are the numbers. This is what I can do. This is what I can't.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely. And in all fairness, the Kill Team stream FAQ provides that. You just go to it and say, look, this is what it says. From a community FAQ. I'm not saying this is correct, but it's how most people are playing it, and at least it gives
yep,
you a base of authority to lean on to some degree.
yep.
Yeah.
Because it's the first thing that we have that is actually clarifying in some way these new 4 different supplements that have come out since the FAQ. And like I
Yeah.
said, we still have questions about core.
Yeah.
So
It's ridiculous. Like, you know what? If Games Workshop hadn't wanted to FAQ commanders immediately, fine. But skipping, I honestly thought we were going to get a Kill Team FAQ when 40k got their FAQ, if I'm honest. And then I
I
was
went on and
tricking
looked.
I was tricking myself. I was thinking, well, you know what? Elite's just released. Maybe they're only just doing the FAQ for the elites, and that's why it's late. Because we have heard rumor that they are working on it, but in the
Mm-hmm.
same way that I'm sure we could ask them literally anything, and they'd say, "Yeah, we're working on that." It's like, "Oh, you bringing squats
Yeah.
back? We're working on it." It's like,
Yeah.
okay, sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So I
know.
mean,
I assumed that it would be there when they released the
yeah,
last FAQ. Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
okay, good. I will proceed on and see how the rules have changed for my game. Nope.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, unless you have any rules or like format questions yourself that we haven't covered.
No, I think we should let people get back to work or pay attention to the road,
Yes,
wherever
it's
they are
only
when they're
been an hour and
listening.
50 minutes. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just a
We'll
short one
save it for
today.
maybe next time.
A short one. Yes, okay, well, thank you very much, Beeranid, for turning up. Is there anything you'd like to plug or anything like that?
Nope. Just I have a YouTube channel. You might watch it if you like Kill Team.
Yes, obviously everybody. Again, I assume everybody, if they watch me, they watch you. But Beeranid 40k, you will have seen his channel logo up on the screen for this entire interview. So go check him out. Oh, and of course, leave a like and subscribe on this
Oh,
video, because if you don't, I don't
the
really.
Gremlins will get you.
I should have planned something there. But whatever.
The Gremlins will come.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll play a cheesy list against you if I see you at a tournament and beat you. But if you like
Yes.
and subscribe, I'll let you win. There you go.
If you don't like it, you'll get nothing but ones in your next tournament.
That is yes, that is fact. That is fact.
Yes.
Apart from on your leadership roles, obviously.
Oh, yes, those will all be sixes.
All sixes, yes. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming along, everybody. This has been Glass Half Dead and Beeranid discussing competitive formats, but getting sidetracked heavily along the way because we just kind of like Kill Team and like talking about it. So, Beeranid, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
And goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching. I hope you've had a great day, and I hope you continue to have a great day. See you later. Awesome. So
Glad to be
basically,
back.
yes, I'll edit that bit out because this is super awkward too early on in the video. I didn't hear what you said. But I'll edit this. Yeah.